In about 30 minutes, President Trump is due to arrive at the Vatican, where he and First Lady Melania will participate in an arrival ceremony. It's there that the president will meet Pope Francis for the very first time. And, of course, we will bring you live pictures from the Vatican as they come in. For more on what we can expect from the visit, we are joined by Msgr. Kieran Harrington, who is the Vicar for Communications for the Diocese of Brooklyn. Msgr, so good of you to join us, sir.
My pleasure,
I know
Trace.
that you know that not too long ago it was, candidate Trump and Pope Francis, and there seemed to be a little bit of bad blood. The Pope criticized the wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, and then candidate Trump said, the Pope was disgraceful and should really stay out of it. Is there still a little bit of that left, do you think, or is that just water under the bridge at this point?
Well, I think we're not going to see any of that at this juncture. I mean, both people speak very sharply, very plainly. They kind of cut through all the noise, and certainly the Pope did that when he kind of spoke about someone who builds walls and not bridges as sort of being unchristian. And Trump responds by saying the Pope is disgraceful for calling into question his Christianity. So that sets the table. But I think here we're going to see a meeting that's going to be very cordial, probably very substantive on a lot of different issues. I'm sure the Pope, his first encyclical letter, Laudato Si, was on the environment. He's probably going to raise some of these questions in his meeting with Trump. And certainly I think he's going to speak about the plight of refugees. And certainly they have a lot to speak about, especially the security of the world when you consider what happened in Manchester.
And Msgr, you make a very good point, because a lot of people don't realize, I mean, they look at Vatican City, and we're looking at live pictures of it right now. People forget this is a sovereign country. And so when a lot of analysts say, well, this is going to be a religious meeting to kind of finish off what was called kind of a religious trip. Well, this is its own sovereign state.
That's
they
right.
have diplomats, there's ambassadors, and so the Pope is not really going to talk as much religion as he's going to talk policy. As you said, refugees, a lot of other stuff will be covered aside from religion, correct?
That's right. I mean, this is not going to be a religious encounter. Our religious faith informs our public policy. The Pope is the head of state, and he is going to be speaking about state matters. I think that, Ivanka Trump has been speaking about trafficking. I'm sure that will be a peripheral issue here. I think the more substantive questions are really going to be about security, questions about the environment. And remember, there's going to be, despite the fact that there may seem to be great differences between these two men, I think there's also commonality. Both seem to be suspicious of globalization and the impact of globalization on the economy and what it means for people. So I think that, the Pope, his tweet this morning was about finding common ground. I think that may be the metaphor for where he and President Trump are going to be headed.
Yeah, the Pope did talk about common ground here, Msgr. I want to know your sense of what the Pope is looking for out of this. I mean, when he invites President Trump to the Vatican, is it just a show? I mean, is this symbolism, or is the Pope really looking for some hard, fast answers to a lot of the problems we face now in the world?
Yeah, I don't think he's looking so much for hard, fast answers. I think he's looking to build a relationship with the man who is the president of the most powerful country in the world. I think he needs to build a relationship with someone whom he can pick up the phone and kind of have substantive discussions about policy matters that really have an impact throughout the world. Listen, this Pope has already done that with President Barack Obama, right? The entire policy of the United States towards Cuba changed as a result of their relationship. I think that that's the kind of insight the Pope is looking to gain from this encounter. Remember, this Pope was the superior of the Jesuit fathers. He trained seminarians. He's going to be looking at the body language. He's going to be listening to what the Pope is saying. He's going to be looking for those areas where he can build a relationship with this man in order to kind of move his agenda forward, which I think is really an agenda of engagement.
But it's a good point. You talk about President Obama. He had 8 years where he didn't, but there was a substantial amount of time that President Obama had to spend while Pope Francis before Pope Francis got in. And the question becomes, do you have to gain some ground on this? I know you can talk about building relationships, but doesn't Pope Francis want to gain a little bit of ground with President Trump? He may only have 4 years. Yeah,
listen, I mean, the Vatican and the Pope, they take a long-term view of things, and I think that relationships begin with the encounter with the person. I think that that's what the Pope is looking for. He wants to encounter the man. He wants to, I think, think, put behind him and Trump maybe some of the bad blood, and kind of look to the forward to see how can they each in their respective, with their respective responsibilities, build a better world.
Yeah, and Monsignor, we've been talking the whole show about this attack in Manchester, and does this come up in the conversation? Does Pope Francis respond to this?
I think it has to. I mean, here's the fact of the matter is Europe has done a very poor job in the integration of refugees, especially refugees that are coming from war-torn nations. That's not the case in the United States. The United States has done an outstanding job integrating refugees from war-torn countries into the broader community. I think that this conversation has to come up, and I think that both are going to have very sharp points. Now, listen, I don't think that this is going to be a contentious meeting by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think it's going to be an open and frank airing of the challenges that the world faces as a result of global terrorism.
Yeah, but because the way the United States is handling refugees is vastly different from the way that other countries are handling refugees, such as Germany. So in that non-contentious debate or conversation that the Pope and the President may have here in the next 30 or 40 minutes, there is a little bit of maybe bringing up the wall in the way the Pope sees how the refugees should be handled. True?
I think that the question of refugees is a critical question to the Pope. I mean, listen, the Pope, it's a very interesting thing, right? Egypt was attacked, and what does the Pope do? He flies to Egypt, and he goes without a great deal of security. This is his response to terrorism, right? To be unafraid of what the terrorists are seeking, to not be shut down by global terrorism. You know, what's the reaction for the rest of the world when there's a terrorist attack? It's to obliterate the terrorist. I think the difference is the Pope is looking for an encounter, even with people who hate us. This is because he's fundamentally a religious person, right? So fundamentally, he's a religious person. He's looking for the encounter with the sinner. Trump is the political leader. He's a head of state. What's he seeking to do? He's trying to provide for the common defense of a nation, which is his primary responsibility. That's the tension that's being brought to these two men today.
Yep. Monsignor, thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Tracy.